gonna figure out how to quickly become the superhero you were born to be by learning the Crucible Secret. We will learn more about that from our fabulous presenter, Robert Coyne. He's a retired Wall Street attorney, founder, endurance athlete, lifetime martial artist, coach, father, husband, and forever curious. He's got a little bit of everything. And I can't wait to tap into his wisdom. So I'm going to hand it straight on over to you, Robert. Tell us, what is a Crucible event?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Heather. And a Crucible event really is, it's kind of a challenge that you do in intervals from time to time. It's something that challenges you. It pushes you beyond your constraints. It takes you outside of your comfort zone. And when you achieve this, when you truly challenge yourself in this regard, what you tend to do is, you'll receive rapid and really long-term growth. It's a tool that I've used for years. I know many people that have had great success with it. And, the trick is to understand what the Crucible event is, make it part of your life, and then keep repeating and repeat. Because you'll gain wisdoms and new experiences from each and every endeavor that you begin in and participate in.
Right. So can you give us some examples of what some Crucible events might be?
Sure. Well, there's really different categorizations of Crucible events. And, whichever one works for you or serves you the best is what you should aim for. And the types of events, certainly carry over. I would say, broadly speaking, that, the first type of crucible is the physical. I do adventure racing. I do extreme sports. I run across deserts and the poles. But that, that's my choice, right? For another individual, somebody that was in an accident or somebody that's coming out of rehabilitation, their Crucible event could be simply training up to have the power to walk around the block. It really depends on the struggle and the depth of the challenge. So you have the physical Crucible events, which I'm very attracted to. The other part I would say is the mental Crucible. You and I know each other through the Alt MBA program, and I would put that in the category of a crucible. For a set period of time, I worked hard during that time. I learned many new things, and probably the final marker on my checklist was I sad when it was over? And the answer was absolutely. Right? So we have the mental type things, and that can go into different things. We had Alt MBA, but it could be doing a new certification or a short, intense skill. I know a lot of people, kind of leveled up during COVID by doing kind of mental crucibles, right? I would also put, and this is hard, particularly for men, and it's often overlooked, the emotional crucible. And it could be anything from, working on a relationship or, getting into therapy with a relationship, fixing an addictive habit, whatever that might be, if it's drinking. And it could even be leaving a relationship, making a plan, leaving a relationship, getting support, getting out of something unhealthy. So you have, and these are very traumatic. So, we don't think of them as crucibles, but they are, if you look back over time, events that are huge in the list of your life, how you live your life. And probably the fourth category I would say would be the spiritual crucible. And that could be through, it could be through religion. It could be through meditative retreats, provided that the elements are there. It's something you struggle with, something that you learn or gain some deep insights. I know there's some friends of mine that have done these retreats where they sit in darkness for, I don't know, I think it was 7 days, complete darkness. And I'm kind of curious about that. I don't think I'll ever do it because, you have to weigh, if I do that, what am I not doing? And that's going to be time with my family and time out. But I'm kind of curious about it. I'd probably end up doing burpees the whole time. Dark. Um, and then the other thing too is, a single crucible, you may grow in different areas. Sharing one of my genre of crucibles, on the adventure races, when I do something extremely punishing and hard, um, I'll experience many aspects, particularly maybe the spiritual. People pay a lot of money to meditate, clear their mind. Um, Somebody once asked me, what am I thinking about? When you're on hour 13, it's the middle of the night, you got 40K to go, you've already done 60, you're tired, you're in pain. And really the answer for me is nothing. The only thing I'm thinking about is getting to the end. And, looking back, it's, I really find the spiritual side of myself in addition to the physical aspects. And through these type of events, you make great friends. I've made lifelong friends through this. You and I know each other, for example, through the Alt MBA. So that's kind of the genres of crucible events that somebody can undertake.
So how do I identify a crucible event in my own life? What's the criteria? Like, what is a crucible event and what really isn't?
Right. Good question. It's a little tricky. There's a subjective and objective part to the answer. Um, Doing coaching, one of the things we don't like to do is to judge. If you say something it's really up to you to make the determination. An example, and going to a physical crucible, an example of something that I wouldn't consider crucible is, for example, if I'm running, 405 marathons and I want to break 4 hours, and that's a good goal. That's great. So I train a little bit harder and I go out there and I finish at 3:58. It's not really a crucible because, your level of growth isn't that change. Yes, you reach the goal, and I don't mean to diminish that. But, was that a crucible? No, it's kind of what you're really doing. You haven't changed anything. You haven't changed your environment. You haven't stepped outside your comfort zone. You haven't faced uncertainties or struggles that you're not accustomed to. But then let's take a counter example. Let's say that, somebody is middle-aged and overweight, unhealthy, smoking, right? And they wake up one day and they commit to real change, right? And they make a program and a plan to enact that change. Now, provided they will struggle, it will get hard. So let's say they put something out there like a 10K or even a 5K. It's really relative to the individual. And they're able to achieve that. I would deem that a crucible. They've hit all the elements. They've struggled. They've overcome. They've learned. They gained a sense of pride. So it's really, really a great accomplishment. So I think ultimately, it comes down to whether you're being honest with yourself. Would be the definition.
Right. So you've talked about, you and I have talked a little bit about the transformative power of the transformative. Will you say a little bit more about that?
Sure. How I got on the kick was, maybe about 20 years ago, I was living somewhat a very comfortable life. But there was no real growth. I had a beautiful family, everything was great, but something was missing. And I was sitting there and I was playing a video game and I interacted with an NPC that's a non-player character. And the character said to me, in the game, go to change before change comes to you. And I don't know why that struck something, but it really struck something in me. And I stopped and I was like, whoa, what does that mean? And it caused me to do some soul searching, and I had looked at myself, and I had came out of school, I had done well, I had built a career, and then I just kind of stopped. I had, in a way, fallen asleep, right? And I felt incomplete was what it was. So then the question became, well, what do I do to change? And being a fan of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, what it was really was a wake up call to myself, to come on an adventure. I'm sitting there, there's more to me, but there's not enough with me right now. I need more. Why stop? We're giving one life, and within that life, one day, right? And why can't I live each day as a complete life? And from that, from the soul searching, I looked around and I figured, what can I do? What would push me? What would test me? What would cause me growth? What would make me happy? And, having a high energy level and enjoying sports, I signed up for, it was a 250K adventure race in the Gobi, right when SARS hit, but I still went. And it was horrible. I mean, it was hard. It was really hard. And, but afterwards, I just felt great. I had moved, I had grown, I had progressed, my view of the world had completely changed.
Right. So tell us, how do we take that Crucible event and emerge a superhero? So we know what the Crucible event is now.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work, and why does it work? Do I sign up for that race in the Gobi and become a superhero in the process, which I'm definitely not going to do? But
Right.
how do we pick our own Crucible events, and how do we use them to quickly become that superhero?
Right. Well, again, it's subjective to each individual, so you had done the old MBA. That was a mental type crucible. Let me ask you, Heather, if you had to think about big areas of growth or things that challenge you in a way that would challenge you in a healthy way, where you can experience exponential growth, kind of level up, what would you think? What would you think of? What would appeal to you?
Yeah, honestly, I think about the most challenging times of my life, which were getting divorced, which was definitely hit both spiritual and emotional. I think starting my own business was another huge one. During COVID, I got laid off and had to do something, and I decided to start my own business. And I think that was and continues to be a trial and continues to
Right.
be a force for growth. So, but I'm interested in this idea of intentionality because I fell into those things. Like I didn't want to get divorced, right? That's how life played out for us. And although I did choose to get into running my own business, I didn't think I want to develop professionally. I was a little bit, terrified, and I was like going to make this side gig turn into like the main event. So how might I look at the world and say, I would like personal growth in one of those four areas. Here's what I'm going for.
Right. Well, it's a matter of listening, as it affected with me, and it sounds like somewhat with you, you have to listen to your inner voice. At what hero's journey is calling you? Where is your calling? What is it calling you to do? So once you hear the voice, you have to attune to the voice. You have to align to the voice, and then once you do that, it's a matter of exploration as to finding, what the crucible will be. What is the crucible of the time that would enact this exponential growth in a short period of time, so you can level up. So, again, it's a subjective journey, and, the voice and the calling will come to the individual based on where they are. But it's a matter of listening. And once you hear the calling, once you know, and once you're feeling inside, then it's kind of, it becomes fun. You look around, if it's a mental crucible, for example, what is it that you want to do? If do you want to go reinvent yourself as a software engineer and go master artificial intelligence and make a whole lot of money? If that's what you want to do, you can find a course that will challenge you, that you would work, and you're going to have to commit and struggle. And you could begin that. If you're, struggling with fitness, if you want to change, if you're not happy with your body, there are things you can do there. I mean, if it's eating, it could be committing to a whole new lifestyle, redefining your relationship with food. If it's general health, or if you like to be challenged physically, go find something. Come run with me in the Arctic Circle in August, I think, right? Or if you're not ready for that and you want to do that, what can you do? Can you join a local race? Can you join a club, that will prepare you for a big event? Or, as you had mentioned before, and particularly with divorce, can you gain comfort with that? That is what you have to do. And to the extent you commit to that path, you hear that calling, you've answered the call, well, how do you get there? Are you going to go counseling? Is it going to be attorneys? Map it out. It's going to be a very difficult time, but it's going to be a very big event. And at the end of the event, you're going to be changed. And if you do it right, you'll be changed for the better. You'll be a better person when you go through it. So it's very subjective, but to answer the original question, you have to align and listen to your inner voice. And if you spend time and you listen carefully, you will hear a call.
That's beautiful. I love it. So I don't typically have trouble signing up for things,
Right.
but tell me a little bit about the journey along the way, and about staying in it. Like, when do I know I've picked the wrong thing and should let it go? When do I know maybe I'm in the dip, as we call it from the Alt MBA community? I'm sure you'll talk about that.
Right.
I feel like I see a lot of people sign up with the best of intentions, but struggle with persistence and commitment and showing up regularly.
Right. Well, I've worked with people, and I'm susceptible to it too. The new shiny thing, but to the extent you're attaching yourself to too many projects, I would argue that you're not really attaching yourself to a crucible, because a crucible event is something hard that will require all your time and energy, or a majority of it. And I'll answer that, but let me go back to you. For example, when you did your Alt MBA, one of the things, they had said earlier, you literally get out what you put in. But how hard did you work? How was the experience for you?
Well, I was lucky that my work gave me some work hours to do it, so that I could, and I brought work projects to it. So I had a little bit of help from work. But yes, I worked very hard, cleared the schedule, made space for it, made sacrifices in other areas of my life temporarily, so that I could put into it what I personally felt like I wanted to. That one for me was easier though, because there were coaches and there were other people and that kind of thing. So something like that, when you sign up, it's different when you sign up for a self-paced course, I think, or something like that, that you could turn into a Crucible event.
Right.
And then it is where you're kind of carried along on the wave. And I see a lot of people, after the structure is gone, right? Everybody who goes through a 5-week intensive program like that with coaches and other people comes out changed on the other end, but very few stay at that level. When that structure is gone, I think we have a hard time self-imposing our own structure, which is in fact what Go Go Done is about. Like, my whole work was like about trying to take some of that and keep it alive in this constant state of innovation and connection and community, right? So that was my attempt at it. And I'm lucky enough to be able to spend most of my time on that. And I think that if somebody else is not leading the way, that there is this, I often see this gap in self-leadership and creating structure for ourselves, this reliance on willpower alone to make everything happen when life is not going to roll over and let you use willpower. It's going to throw everything challenging at you.
Right, right. Well, in a way, you kind of went in, part of the title here was the secret way to doing it. And I haven't seen any literature on this in the world, so I'm actually working on that. After you have something big, and I'll go back to the original question about people who take on too many things, but after you do a big crucible event, invariably there comes, what we had mentioned as the dip or the drop, the disappointment. You've summited that mountain, you're standing on the plateau, you just graduated from school, or, you just finished that race, or, you just got that divorce and somebody looked at you for the first time and said, well, I'm single now, whatever it may be, but it's over, that part of the journey is over. And what happens is, a lot of people get sad, they get disappointed, their way of life, their habits are now changing, before a big physical event, I'm going to be running and working out for months and each and every day. And that's what I do. That's who I am. My name is Robert. I wake up at 6 a.m. I run for 2 hours. Then I take my boy to school and I do all the things that I have in a day. That's who I am. After the race, I no longer have to do that. And, that's where I go into the word secret, because, it's a matter of repurposing, how you live your life. And it goes back into kind of the hero's journey, so if you take that summit and you stop viewing it as a summit, and you just view your life as a series of journeys with peaks and valleys, by living a life that includes, continual challenges, real challenges, to you, that's what I've found has generated exponential growth. It rewards me and people that I see that live that style in so many ways. Well, let me step back to an example, perhaps, to kind of clarify. There was a big race in Western Australia. It was 300 miles, 5 days, carry your own stuff. And it was very physical for me. I had and somebody I was very competitive with, and I was going to go beat him. And his name's Stan, we're good friends. It was kind of more fun, but I was going to get him. And I trained so hard for that race. So what happens? I show up day one. It's no clouds in the sky. It's about 100 degrees and brutal sunlight and 100% humidity. And I go out and I make a rookie mistake. I went out far too fast. So I think I covered the first 40K in maybe 5 hours. And we're not on trails. We're in the middle of the bush. It was not a great race. It wasn't very interesting scenery and whatnot. And, I dehydrated. It took me maybe 2 hours to finish the final 2K. I could walk a few feet and I would have to stop. I took 2 IVs that night. I started the next morning and I kind of made it to the first checkpoint. And, I sat down and I said, I'm not really having fun here. So when is it okay to quit? When is it okay? I know I came, I know I tried hard. I know it didn't work out. I realized I made a mistake, but I decided to stop the race, and I had never done that before. And it turns out some other people had dropped. So we all dropped at the same time. And then we kind of reinvented our time in Western Australia. We got together, we rented a helicopter, we went camping. I had the best time, the best time ever. I made new friends that are still my friends today. So out of this experience, although, what I intended to do, I did not succeed at it. I was able to transmute that into an experience and to an adventure. So when is it okay to quit? Again, it's very subjective, but there's a point where it doesn't make sense. And when you become comfortable with that and you find a way to transmute it, there's a tremendous lesson that you can learn on that from that. And that was the example that I offer. So yeah, it was just an absolute great experience. I know what matters. I'm not going to kill myself. I have a family. At a certain point, too much is too much.
Right, right. Well, I love this idea of instead of just looking at it as making the most out of the difficult times in your life, of when you have the space for it, to choose a difficult time to create in your life to really stimulate that growth. I think I remember thinking back in my 30s, I really kind of, when you settle into your career and all of that, I felt like I looked at my peer group around me and I felt like there were a lot of people who were like, whew, finally, I don't have to fail at things anymore. I'm going to keep everything right where it is. And then another group who were like, well, got this figured out. I better find something else to fail forward into. And
Right.
there was this kind of those years in that decade of the 30s where I saw this kind of separating of the two groups. I will say I think I've swung way too far to one side. I could use some years of coasting, but I love this idea of kind of crafting your path to becoming that superhero and choosing it intentionally. I think it's a beautiful message.
Yes. And again, what it is, it's a commitment to a lifestyle where you continuously plan crucibles, things where you can struggle, but achieve fast and real and measurable growth. And, you'll find you'll go on your adventure, you'll come back home. If you speak in John Campbell terms, you slayed the dragon, you bring the elixir back home, you do kind of revert to the mean, it does over, but the mean is now a lot higher. You have leveled up. You're a better version of yourself. And, looking at wisdom, I mean, what is wisdom? It's really what you get from experience. So when you have these adventures and you have a continuous stream of these adventures, you gain all these wisdoms, and that doesn't fade. They stack, and you go and you become deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's just a great way to live your life. It's a great way to get unstuck if you're stuck. It's a great way to grow exponentially. And if you craft your crucible in the right way, you'll discover new lands and new journeys. You'll make new relationships. You'll connect with new communities. And with COVID lifting, I encourage everybody, we've done the best we could. We've all struggled, from at home, but what can you do now? What can you do in the world that would change how you exist in the world? What can you add to your kind of toolbox of experiences to kind of propel you, into the next chapter of your life or toward your next crucible?
Yes, I love it. Well, we're coming to the end of our time here. I know that you work with people as a coach. Robert, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you if they'd like to learn more about maybe making this Crucible Secret work to their advantage?
Sure. The best way to reach me right now would be robert@makeitcount.coach. I recently relocated back into the United States of America from Asia, where I've been living a long time. So we're rebuilding the coaching practice from this hemisphere, which I'm excited to do. But yes, the best way to get me right now is robert@makeitcount.coach. And, even if you have a question or some recommendations, as to what to do, I've been living this life for about 20 years now. And, if I had to share one thing or one secret that I have that I see other people not taking full advantage, I would say it would be the Crucible event.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today on Go Learn, Robert. I have put your email in the chat. So everyone, please do email Robert and take advantage. Take life, what is it? Take the bull by the horns. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather. It's always my pleasure to chat.
You bet. Thanks, Robert.
Okay. Bye-bye.